Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they keep doing what feels safe. That may sound harsh, but it's true. We tell ourselves we're being careful, patient, or realistic. In reality, we're often just avoiding the discomfort that comes with change. I used to think I needed more time, more confidence, or the perfect plan before taking action. But the truth is, waiting didn't make me stronger. It just kept me stuck, and I know I'm not the only one. So here's a question worth thinking about. What if the thing holding you back isn't a lack of ability, but a habit you've repeated for years without even noticing? By the end of this story, you'll see how one small shift in thinking can completely change the direction of your life. A few years ago, life looked normal from the outside. I had responsibilities, a routine, and plenty of reasons to stay busy. But underneath all of that, something felt off. Every day seemed to repeat itself. Wake up, work, deal with problems, go to sleep, and do it all again. I kept telling myself things would get better someday. The problem was that someday never came. Months turned into years and nothing really changed. Looking back, the biggest issue wasn't my circumstances. It was that I had become comfortable with staying where I was. I wasn't moving forward, but I wasn't moving backward enough to force a change either. That's a dangerous place to be. Many people live there for years without realizing it. They aren't unhappy enough to act, but they're not happy enough to feel fulfilled. The biggest mistake most people make is believing that thinking about change is the same as creating change. It's not. I spent a long time reading, planning, and imagining a better future. It felt productive, but nothing in my actual life improved. The gap between knowing and doing kept getting wider, and that's where many people get stuck. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until fear disappears. They wait until the timing feels perfect. But real life doesn't work that way. Confidence usually comes after action, not before it. I remember knowing exactly what I needed to do, yet putting it off week after week because I was afraid of failing. The result was simple. Nothing changed. The lesson was hard, but important. Avoiding a small risk today often creates a much bigger regret tomorrow. The turning point didn't come from some big breakthrough. It came from a simple realization. One day, I looked at my life and had to admit something I had been avoiding for years. The results I was getting were a reflection of the choices I was making every day. Not my intentions, not my excuses. My choices. That wasn't easy to accept. For a long time, I blamed circumstances, bad timing, and things outside my control. But once I stopped doing that, everything started to look different. I realized that waiting for motivation was keeping me stuck. Waiting for the perfect moment was keeping me stuck. The first lesson was simple. If I wanted a different future, I had to start acting differently today. That shift in perspective changed everything. Instead of focusing on what I couldn't control, I started paying attention to the small things I could control. And that's when real progress finally began. The solution turned out to be much simpler than I expected. It wasn't about working harder until I burned out. It wasn't about making some dramatic life change overnight. The real answer was building small, consistent actions that I could actually stick with. That's it. Instead of trying to change everything at once, I focused on improving one thing at a time. A small habit, a small decision, a small promise to myself each day. It didn't seem impressive at first. In fact, it felt almost too simple. But that's exactly why it worked. Big goals can feel overwhelming. Small actions feel manageable. And when you repeat those actions long enough, they start changing who you are. That's what most people miss. Success is rarely one giant leap. More often, It's a series of small choices repeated over and over until they become part of your life. Knowing what to do was one thing. Actually doing it was something else entirely. At first, I started small, really small. I focused on one habit instead of 10. I stopped worrying about being perfect and concentrated on being consistent. Some days went well, other days didn't. There were times when I felt frustrated because progress seemed slow. There were moments when old habits tried to pull me back into familiar patterns. That's normal. Change is uncomfortable. Growth usually is. What helped me keep going was remembering that progress isn't measured by one good day or one bad day. It's measured by what happens over time. Whenever I slipped up, I stopped treating it like failure. I treated it like feedback. Then I got back on track. Little by little, those small actions became easier, and eventually, what once felt difficult became part of my routine. That's when I realized that consistency will take you much farther than motivation ever can. What surprised me most wasn't the size of the results, it was how they happened. There was no dramatic moment, no overnight transformation. The changes showed up quietly. I felt less stressed. I stopped second-guessing every decision. I had more confidence because I was finally keeping promises to myself. Over time, those small wins started adding up. Things that once felt impossible became normal. Challenges didn't disappear, but they stopped controlling my life. Looking back, I realized that progress isn't always obvious when you're living through it. Sometimes you only see how far you've come when you stop and compare yourself to the person you used to be. That's probably the biggest lesson for anyone watching this. Don't underestimate small improvements. Most meaningful changes happen slowly. They build in the background. Then one day, you realize you're living a completely different life than the one you had before. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this story, it's this. Your life is shaped more by your daily choices than your biggest dreams. Goals matter. Plans matter. But what you do consistently matters even more. Most people spend too much time looking for the perfect strategy and not enough time taking the next small step. The truth is, you don't need to have everything figured out before you begin. You just need to start. A little progress is still progress. A small step still moves you forward. And every time you choose action over excuses, you're building a better future for yourself. That's the real message here. Not perfection, not instant success. Just steady growth, one decision at a time. It may not look exciting at first, but over the years, it can change everything. So let's quickly remember what this story taught us. Real change doesn't usually begin with a huge breakthrough. It begins when we stop waiting and start taking responsibility for the small choices we make every day. Those choices may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they shape the direction of our lives. If this story connected with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What lesson stood out the most? Have you ever experienced a small change that ended up making a big difference? Share your experience in the comments below. And if you enjoy simple life lessons that help you grow a little stronger, wiser, and more intentional every day, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Quiet Growth Lab. We'd be grateful to have you join our community. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Take care of yourself. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. And remember that even the smallest progress is still progress. We'll see you in the next video.